Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're going to tackle a huge question for basically any insurer out there. How do you turn these massive mountains of raw data into smart, automated decisions? It's a journey, and we're going to climb it together, step by step. So how do you actually do that? How do you get from a spreadsheet that's just full of numbers to a real, concrete business action? Well, it might seem super complex, but it really just boils down to answering a few simple questions, one right after the other. I want you to think of it like climbing a ladder. You know, with each rung you climb, the view gets a little clearer, and the insights you get become way more powerful. So, let's start at the bottom, on the ground floor.
All right, the very first step on our ladder, this is all about just getting a clear view of the landscape. It answers the most fundamental question you can possibly ask of your data. What is happening right now?
Okay, so picture this. A claims manager walks in, opens up a dashboard, and sees the number of car claims, average cost, loss ratio by region. You know, a classic scene in any insurance company. You might just call it a report, but what you're really looking at is the first, most essential type of data work, descriptive analytics. Think of this as your business's rearview mirror. It's not magic, it's just showing you exactly where you've been. It tells you the cold, hard facts of what just happened. It's basically the scorecard that tells you the current state of play. So, in our claims example, this is that manager's dashboard. Probably built in something like Power BI or Tableau. It's that essential first step of just seeing the numbers. But seeing isn't enough. Next, you have to ask, why? Okay, so now we know what happened. The dashboard shows a big spike in claims. So the next logical question has to be, why? This is where we get to put on our detective hats. You've spotted that anomaly on your descriptive dashboard, so what do? You start digging in, right? You're slicing and dicing the data, trying to find the root cause. This is all about finding the why behind the what. This is the moment you go from just seeing numbers on a screen to actually understanding the story behind them. You're not just a spectator anymore. You're an investigator, connecting the dots to find that hidden cause. And in our claims example, this is that aha moment. It's when an analyst drills down into the data and bam, finds the root cause of a cost spike. Maybe it was one specific supplier. You've diagnosed the problem, now you can actually do something about it. So, we understand the past, now we can start to look into the future. And honestly, this is where things get really, really powerful. We're moving from being reactive to being proactive. This is a massive leap. We're not just looking in the rearview mirror anymore. We're actively trying to forecast what's around the corner. And that is an absolutely core capability in modern insurance. Now, look, we're not just guessing here. This isn't about having a crystal ball. We're using historical data and math to calculate the probability of what's going to happen. We're finding the patterns of the past to make a very, very educated guess about the future. So for our claims case, this is where a model assigns each new claim a fraud score. Now, the tools to do this, they have fancy names like gradient-boosted trees or logistic regression, but don't get hung up on that. Their job is pretty simple. Find patterns in old data to predict what's next. That score is a powerful prediction, but it's not a decision. Not yet. And this brings us to probably the most common point of confusion in all of analytics. That predictive step, it gives you a forecast, the what. So for example, this claim has a 90% fraud risk, but the next step, prescriptive, tells you what to do about it. Route this claim to investigations. See the difference?
And that brings us to the very top of the ladder, the final, most valuable step that turns all of that amazing insight directly into action. And often, it does it automatically.
This is the goal, right? We're taking the prediction, that fraud score, and we're using it to make an automated decision in real time. Efficient, intelligent automation. That's the dream. Think of this as the automated brain of your whole operation. It takes that prediction, sure, but then it combines it with your specific business rules. Things like costs, capacity, your risk appetite, to figure out the single best action to take right now. So here's where it all comes together beautifully. A simple rule engine takes that fraud score and just acts on it. Low scores, they get processed automatically. High scores, they go to a human investigator. The decision is made, the loop is closed. And more complex tools like linear programming just help you make even better decisions when you got millions of possible outcomes. Okay. So let's just take a step back for a second and look at the entire ladder we've just climbed. We've gone all the way from just raw data to a concrete automated business action. It's pretty cool. Notice how each level builds so logically on the last one? You have to know what happened before you can ask why it happened. You've got to know why before you can even try to predict what's next. And you need a really solid prediction before you can decide what to do. You cannot skip the steps.
So let's boil all of this down to a simple cheat sheet. If you remember one thing from all this, make it this. Always, always start with the business question. The question you're asking, what, why, what's next, or what should we do, that question tells you exactly which rung of the ladder you need to be on.
And that leaves us with a final thought, really a question for you to consider. Looking at your own business, your own team, where are you on this ladder right now? And maybe more importantly, what's the very next step you need to take to climb higher?